Κυρίες και κύριοι, καλησπέρα σας. Καλώς ήρθατε σε άλλη μία εκπομπή με θέμα Ελλάδα, εθνική και διεθνής ασφάλεια. Και καλή χρονιά να πούμε. Τα γεγονότα με την πανδημία συνεχίζουν, οι εμβολιασμοί. Είχαμε τα διάφορα που γίνανε στην Αμερική με τον Τραμπ και το Καπιτόλιο. Και έτσι πέρασε απαρατήρητο το γεγονός ότι υπάρχει μία υπογραφή για το Brexit και ότι έφυγε πλέον η Μεγάλη Βρετανία από την Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση. Για να το συζητήσουμε έχουμε σήμερα μαζί μας τον γνωστό καθηγητή Featherstone, ο οποίος είναι καθηγητής στο LSE και είναι και διευθυντής στο Ελληνικό Παρατηρητήριο του Ευρωπαϊκού Ινστιτούτου. Mr. Featherstone, welcome, Happy New Year and thank you for being here with us.
Καλή χρονιά.
Καλή χρονιά. After more than 4 years, we have a divorce, a messy divorce, but there is a divorce. Is Brexit over?
No, it's not over. There are a number of items still to be resolved, particularly in terms of the financial sector, but other things affecting British travellers like the European health insurance card, etc. But what we've established, I think, on both sides is a basic free trade agreement. And for most people will view this as getting Brexit done.
So do you think Britain actually won or lost from this divorce?
No, I think both sides have compromised. I would say that at the very end, the EU27 made a concession which was very helpful in terms of the so-called rules of origin for cars coming across the borders between the UK and France and the rest of Europe. So there have been some concessions. There were compromises, difficult compromises on fishing rights around the coast. But I think on both sides, most would regard this as something of a difficult compromise, a difficult agreement. Of course, most economists would say that this is the first trade agreement which actually creates more restrictions for trade rather than fewer restrictions for trade. And on that basis, economists would argue that it will have a negative impact for the EU27, but of course, much more of a negative economic impact for the UK.
In the words of Boris Johnson, a new act in our great national drama. How people actually feel about Brexit? Because it has taken so long. So from the beginning on 2013 that the referendum was, let's say, announced in a way, until today, how people feel?
I think the public mood is of frustration, of being tired with Brexit. It has dominated the news for so long. But also, one of the important features here is how divisive Brexit has been for society and our politics. The opinion polls still show that the country is divided. There's very small majorities for this or that opinion. Brexit continues to divide British voters very, very deeply. But I think the mood now is, thank God, we can move on. Now, you quote Boris Johnson's statement there. Of course, for the pro-Brexit side, there is the hope, the promise that Britain will be able to negotiate new trade deals around the world, and that the UK will have a more dynamic economy because we will be trading in a less regulated international environment with countries in different parts of the globe. But it has to be said that this is an aspiration. Where is the evidence to support the idea that this will be some kind of economic liberation? We're not there yet. The trade deals haven't been negotiated. The trade deals that the UK has managed to establish so far are simply replicating that trade access that the UK has had with the rest of the world because of the European Union, through the European Union. We haven't yet seen the light of any new trade agreement which would give the UK better access than anything we had as a full EU member.
So let's go to another aspect of it. Is there a risk for Britain's unity with Scotland being totally pro-Remain, with the issues in Northern Ireland and the border, the soft border? So at the end of the day, is there a risk against the unity of the nation?
Yes, there is. And it's interesting, Marilisa, that you draw the distinction between Northern Ireland and Scotland. They are separate cases. What we have in Northern Ireland is a very unique position where Northern Ireland will remain part of the European Union's single market, whereas the rest of the UK will not. So special arrangements, and economically, Northern Ireland will feel rather more like the rest of the European Union rather than the UK. Whether in the longer term this creates a greater chance for a united Ireland outside the UK is of course a matter of speculation, but it does certainly distance Northern Ireland from the rest of the UK. For Scotland, this may come into the headlines this year because there are elections to the Scottish Parliament this spring, and the First Minister of Scotland has promised that if she wins again, and the opinion polls suggest that she will clearly win again, if she wins again, then she will demand a second referendum on Scotland becoming independent. Now, with Brexit, with the response to the COVID pandemic, I think the mood in Scotland is moving again to support independence, and it therefore becomes quite possible that in the next few years we'll have a Scotland which is beginning its own process of Brexit, that is, a divorce from the rest of the UK. I would add that on these questions of the unity of the UK, the political persona of Boris Johnson is perhaps not helpful. People do contrast the management of the COVID pandemic by the First Minister of Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon, seen as being very effective, a very good communicator, with that of Boris Johnson and his government in London that seems to make so many U-turns. So I think yes, we are in a situation where the prospects of Scottish independence have risen, and we could be in a situation where the United Kingdom begins to fragment as a response to Brexit.
One last thing. Britain left the EU, but it cannot leave Europe. In the words of Macron, geography is stubborn. So what's the future relationship between Britain and the continent?
I think there are some aspects which are still to be determined. If we could take one or two examples in turn, there are some aspects of cooperation which are still outstanding. I think it caused a lot of surprise that the UK government decided it wished to withdraw from the Erasmus scheme for the exchange of students. And I know many students in Greece and their families will be disappointed by that. The UK says that it will replace Erasmus with its own new scheme. But that seems to be, at least in terms of the atmospherics, a very negative outcome of the Brexit negotiations. The UK also decided that it didn't wish to put into the agreement commitments to foreign policy and security cooperation. But And this goes back to what we were saying about the incomplete nature of the agreement. I think in the medium, possibly to the long term, both sides will come to feel that there are practical reasons, good reasons of self-interest for both sides to cooperate more in the cultural dimension, including universities and students, and also more in terms of foreign policy and security matters. There's a very good report out in London this week from Chatham House, which argues that the future foreign policy strategy for the UK should not be to try to be a small, great power. The UK should get rid of any lingering historic sense of its own grandeur. Instead, the UK will need to win friends around the world, but especially within Europe. So I think the future here is for the UK to decide that even after the divorce, we still have an affection for the other side, and let's talk again about cultural exchanges. For the UK to decide that in terms of foreign policy, we can't actually achieve very much by ourselves. Instead, we've got to be a broker, we've got to negotiate, we've got to create coalitions. And that kind of foreign policy role for the UK, I think, demands that the UK does work very closely with the rest of Europe. And as you say, President Macron was very correct in talking about geography, but is also correct in terms of the relationship between France and the UK and other European countries in foreign and security matters. We are, if you like, condemned to live with each other. We've had a divorce, but we still should recognize in the medium and the long term that actually our interests bring us back to talking and to cooperating and finding new practical ways of aligning our positions.
Historically, always Britain with Europe had the back and forth, so Greece and Britain always had a very good diplomacy and relationship. I really hope we're going to have the chance to discuss about those things later on. Thank you so much for your time and for being here with us today.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.